Remember, no one in the Slayers take us to be trusted. Just keep your cool, find their patron, and get the hell out.
Ooh, can we grab an ale while we're here? On Vax?
Scanlan, we don't have time.
Oh, you absolutely have time for this. Today we're making the Slayers take stew. In a bowl, we're going to rehydrate some dried shiitake mushrooms and let those sit aside while we prep the rest of our ingredients. A word of warning for those who do not like mushrooms, this recipe may not be for you. They are everywhere. Fortunately, I like mushrooms. In a large pot on medium-high heat, we are going to go ahead and cook 1 pound of chopped, thick sliced bacon until it's nice and crispy. Will take about 10-12 minutes, and don't worry about the fat, we'll deal with that later. But once it's crispy, we're going to go ahead and use a slotted spoon to drain it and set that aside. From here, we're going to go ahead and add in our sliced Polish kielbasa sausage and cook that until both sides are nice and brown. Again, this should take about 10 to 12 minutes. And once that's done, we are going to do the same thing and use a slotted spoon and remove the sausage from the pan. Once that's done, we're going to go ahead and remove a 1/4 cup, essentially all of the bacon and sausage fat that has rendered, and set that aside for later. In the same pot, we're going to add 1 pound of sliced cremini mushrooms and let those start to cook while we grind our black peppercorns and salt. I like to use Himalayan sea salt. We're gonna let those mushrooms cook. We're gonna check and see if they're releasing water and starting to brown. If they're not, you can go ahead and just add a tiny bit of water in to encourage that process along. I just used not even a half of a third of a cup, like a sixth of a cup. Once the mushrooms have shrunk in size by about half and the fond on the bottom of the pot starts to come up, we're going to add our 2 large yellow onions that we've chopped, as well as 2 large carrots that have been peeled and sliced into rounds about 1/4 inch thick. And mix that together. What we're wanting is the onions to start to caramelize and release a little bit of liquid, but if you notice that it's looking a little dry, go ahead and actually add back in that 1/4 cup of fat that you removed earlier. This will help with the caramelization process and soften things up. Apologies for not catching this on camera. I thought it was rolling. It was not. I added the tomato paste and finely chopped garlic to the pot. Once that tomato paste is cooked down quite a bit, we're actually going to measure out 1 cup of red wine. I used a Merlot. I'm not a wine drinker, but I was told this was a good one. Apparently it is rich and jammy, and so I thought that would be nice in this stew. But we're going to go ahead and measure out a cup of that and add that to the stew. The best time to add the wine is when the tomato paste, onion, and carrots and mushrooms start to develop a fond on the bottom of the pan. This way it prevents things from burning and it will help us to deglaze the pan. So we're going to go ahead and add that in. And we're going to let the alcohol cook out about 10 to 15 minutes until it's mostly dry, so you'll see it's reduced quite a bit here. And it's at this point that we are going to add in our bacon and kielbasa that we had removed earlier and mix that in. So in addition to the salt and pepper that we had ground earlier, we're also going to add caraway seeds. It gives a really nice flavor to the stew, as well as 2 teaspoons. I used about 2.5, because I prefer it, of smoked paprika to the stew, and we're going to go ahead and let that incorporate. Once that's nice and incorporated, add 1/3 of a small head of cabbage that's been sliced, as well as 1 pound of rinsed and drained sauerkraut. We're also going to add a 14-ounce can of diced tomatoes with the juices, as well as 1.5 cartons of a high-quality beef stock. Now we're going to add 2 bay leaves and mix those in. As well as the liquid from the mushrooms we rehydrated earlier. And we're actually going to give these just a rough chop and add them to the pot. Oops!
Whoops.
So I prefer my stews with more broth, so I'm just going to add a little bit more, and then we're going to go ahead and cover this and let it come to a nice, like, heavy simmer, almost boil for about 45 minutes to an hour. You'll know it's done when the cabbage is nice and tender. I would have left mine uncovered, but I have cats, as you've seen, and they would have stuck their faces in this. We're going to go ahead and taste and season to taste. I went ahead and added just a 1/4 teaspoon more salt, just the tiniest bit to elevate the flavor profiles. And I'm just gonna slice some fresh bread that I had made earlier, because nothing is better as an accompaniment to a Dungeons and Dragons stew than fresh bread, in my opinion. Also, let me know if you want the recipe for that, because I'd be happy to show you how I make my bread. It's super easy. And it's time to dig in. First impressions, this was delicious. I will definitely be making this again. I do have a few thoughts though. If you are someone who does not like mushrooms for their texture, this is not for you. I think personally, I think that the rehydrated mushrooms and the fresh mushrooms provide a really nice texture in the stew. But if you're someone who doesn't mind texture and, you know, likes the umami in mushrooms, then I think this would go a long way for you. It was really nice. I also felt that it was better the next day after it had had a chance to come together in the fridge and let the flavors blend a little bit. This is typical for stews and soups, but it was so good. It was so good. I'll definitely be making this again. I felt right at home in my little tavern kitchen, and yeah, I would definitely make this again. So thank you so much, adventurers, for tuning in. If you have any comments, make sure to leave them below. Please like, follow, subscribe, all that jazz. We're new. We need all the help and engagement we can get. But other than that, yeah, I hope you have a stellar rest of your day and that you can enjoy a stew like this yourself sometime. And with that, I bid you adieu. Bye.